Okay, so today we're going to get some animations into our platformer. So here I've got my version of my platformer that I made. So I've got my little green guy. He walks around a little room. So if I hit play here, I can see that I've got my little green guy. He jumps, he moves. He doesn't have any animations currently. If he jumps in a hole, the game tells us that we lost. Great. Okay, so that's kind of first pass. Took us a bit, but we made this. So next, I want to save this as a new project. So I'm going to do File, Project, Save As, and I'm going to call this Platformer. Whoops, that's not how you spell. Platformer 1_1. So that's going to be Platformer 1.1 essentially. And now I'm going to bring in our sprites that we made a minute ago. So I'm going to do right click here, add existing. Then I'm going to go find my sprites. So I did sprites in creation demo 2, sprites, and I'm going to grab the static sprite. And then I'm going to go ahead and do again an add existing. And I'm going to add our jump sprite. And one more. We're going to add our walk sprite. I decided that I don't like the idle sprite that I made, so I'm not going to use it. Sometimes you make things that you don't end up using. All right, now I want to double check some things about these guys. So the first thing I want to double check is that everybody's handled by bottom center. So bottom center on walking, top left on static, we want that to be bottom center. And on jump, we want bottom center. Then I'm going to open up the collision mask and just make sure everybody's collision masks are the same. So I've got here my static sprite, 17, 47, 36, 63, and I have that written down next to me. Now, that's the one I'm going to base everything on. So we're going to open up static. Oops, static we already know. I'm going to open up jump. The jump sprite's different, and it's in precise per frame mode. So I'm going to switch that to rectangle. I'm going to switch it to manual, and that's going to get changed to 1736 4763. So now that's the same as our static guy. And then we're going to open walk up and do that same thing. This is going to be a manual rectangle, and again, 1736 4763. And this isn't looking correct because I messed up and didn't get one of the numbers. Okay, so now we've got all of our sprites are handled by the same area, or the same point, and we've checked their collision masks. You want to do this. If you don't do this, it causes serious issues with animation. It's very annoying. Believe me. I have recorded this video a couple of times because I keep forgetting to check these things. So I've got everything checked now. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to open up our player object. So here's my OBJ player. Now, I'm going to just switch this sprite. So I'm going to switch this for the player static sprite. Now, that image was 16 by 16. Now it's 64 by 64. We may be concerned that we would have to resize our room or something. As it turns out, it looks okay. The reason it looks okay is that our player is actually really close to 30/30, and it just has a bunch of extra padding. So that's why we adjusted our collision mask so we don't have to worry about the extra padding. Now, this room is a little small for me to playtest in, so I'm just going to make my room a little bigger. So I'm going to open up room 1 here in the inspector, and I'm just going to set this up to 1024 by 512, and that's going to make us a much bigger room. I'm going to hit size. And then I'm going to go through and make some adjustments to our to the way our room looks. I'm going to grab our OBJ grass object here. I'm going to hit Alt, and I'm just going to go ahead and spam some more grass in here for me to work with. let's see. I'm not incredibly happy with how that bit went. Let's see. I don't like that one. I don't like that one. I don't like that one. Let's draw some more platforms. So again, this is just me making testing terrain. So there's some testing terrain. We might say our goal is to get to like this one over here or something. All right. Got some testing terrain made. Great. Now, I'm going to hit run on this and just make sure things are still working with my new player. So, little guy drops down. We can jump. We can still walk around. Cool. We can jump over here. Great. You might note I can't make too wide jumps. So, I think I'm going to have to adjust something. That something is going to be in the step of our player here, right? So I'm going to make my player do just a couple things better. I'm going to make the jump a little higher, so I'm going to set the jump speed higher. And I'm going to set the speed to 2 instead of 1. Now, before I dive too deeply into this, I want to do just a little bit of recollection of what we had going in the platformer. So I'm going to make this a little bigger so we can see it. And then I'm going to go through this and throw a couple of comments in here. Before we dig deeper, we should really comment what we've got. So this guy here, I'm going to comment, this is gravity. So the Y speed is a speed limit on falling. So I'm going to, oops, cancel. I'm going to put a comment on this. And this is what's called terminal velocity. Right, that's, we can't fall any faster than 8. This is happening if we're on the ground. So if the player is on a grass block, we're going to do some stuff. Okay, and then here we've got horizontal controls. So I'm just going to collapse all of these. So then I'm going to put a comment on this guy. This is going to be commented. This is horizontal controls. And this guy here is the end of our horizontal controls. So I'm going to put a comment here and say end of horizontal controls. And then this is actually controlling our horizontal movement. Actually, this is calculate the horizontal speed. Okay, and then this last thing here, this does our movement for us. So we're going to comment that. And then this thing is our loss condition at the bottom. So I'm going to add a comment on that. Okay, so now that I've got things like basically commented, I'm going to have to do a little bit of work with my grass blocks. Let me run this and just check that the speed changes I made haven't screwed anything up. So now we're quite a bit faster. We jump a little bit higher, which is good. Okay, this feels basically doable now. I can get to all my little islands. Oh, we can make that jump. Crazy. Okay. So, great. This is kind of working. Cool. Let's check that we lose. Okay, we lose. Awesome. All right. So now let's get our sprites in there. Or sorry, our animations in there. So the first one I'm going to do is going to be that jump animation. So right now I've got, if our object is on grass and we press the spacebar key, this is where our jump starts. So we're going to add that. So this is what's actually doing jumping. So if we actually jump, I'm going to want to set a sprite. So the sprite I'm going to want to set is I'm going to want to set sprite to player jump. Okay, now I'm going to hit run on this. And now if we jump, we got our jump animation. Uh-oh. We got our jump animation, but now he's just kind of sitting there blobbing out. So I want him to stop doing that. So the way I'm going to make him stop doing that is I'm going to add an else here. So if we're on the ground and we haven't just hit the spacebar, we're going to want to set a sprite. And the sprite we're going to want to set is going to be that static sprite. That's our middle sprite there. Okay, so now we're on the ground. If we jump, we get our jump animation. And I'm actually not the biggest fan of this jump animation that I made. So I'm going to make a little adjustment in our jump animation. So I'm going to go look at our jump animation. I'm going to say, all right, this little wind-up thing, as it turns out, because the guy moves up immediately, the wind-up looks kind of silly. So I'm going to delete the wind-up frames. Okay, now I've got just my jump animation going. So we're going to hit run again. I'm going to hit stop the current project that was running in the background. All right. Okay, now it's a bit too long. So he starts jumping again. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust this. So I'm going to make this frame here. That's not the frame I wanted. I wanted this frame. I want the two kind of blobby frames to last just a little bit longer. And now let's run this. Okay, so that's the perfect length of time it looks like for him to come back to his round shape after making a jump. Cool. And we could note that there's going to be some issues with this. Like if I jump up onto something, he's going to kind of continue to play his jump animation. Oh, I can't jump up onto anything. Great, we lost. Perfect. Now I don't have to show you that it's a little screwed up. Doesn't matter. Trust me. The animation's good enough. Okay, now what I'd really like to do is get the player walking as well. So I'm going to go back up into my player. Oops, where'd my player go? Let me just double click that. Okay. So here we're back into our player's animation screen, or our player's step event. And I've got that if the key's down, I'm going to set jump, and otherwise I'm going to set the character to static. What I actually want though is for the character to walk. So I'm going to add another if here into this else. And that if is going to be based on X speed. So X speed is how we were controlling the characters. So if it's not 0, then I'll want to do a set sprite. And the set sprite I'll want to do is I'll want to set my sprite to walking. So that's this last sprite. And then in the case that I haven't done that, that's when I'll want to set the sprite to static. So this is a little bit complicated because I'm in a bunch of ifs. So if we're on the ground and we jump, we should set the sprite to jump. If we're on the ground and we don't jump, but we are moving sideways, then we should have a walk animation. And if we're on the ground and not jumping and not walking, that's when we should be static. So that's why we're a couple of ifs deep here, right? So this is to add a comment. So our if not jumping, right? So if we're not jumping, so if not jumping and moving sideways, we should walk. And here is if we're not jumping and not moving sideways, then we should be static. Okay, so I'm going to hit run on this, and this may or may not work. Okay, so... Oh. Look, if I'm walking along this, I'm not getting the walking animation, but if I walk off of something, I get the walking animation playing. What's going on there? Well, what's going on there is this is setting the walk sprite at frame 0. Frame 0 on the walk sprite is the static. That's just the static guy. So if I hit relative on this, now when we walk, we'll get our little walking animation playing. And you might notice the walking animation was playing as I was in the air there. Oh, F- in platforming, Joe. All right, cool. So this is working. I've got my animations added to my game. Are they working perfectly? No, not quite. There are a couple things I'm not real happy with in these, but I think they're certainly good enough for a basic game, which is really what we're trying to get to today. Quick word of warning. If you end up getting something that looks a bit like this on one of your sprites, what's happened there is GameMaker has decided to corrupt your sprite for some reason. I've had this happen a couple of times, but I didn't get a recording of it, which was foolish of me. So if that happens, where like one of your animations, you like go to move and everything looks the same way mine does, and you've made sure that your collision masks are good and that everything's being handled by the same place, and it just doesn't seem to work. Sometimes it'll display even the right size. So I had one working a minute ago where the walk cycle was like square, slightly more oblong, real oblong, and back. It was working shape-wise, but the image wasn't displaying. But what was displaying was some little weird checkerboarded thing. In that case, there are a couple answers. One is you can delete the sprite and reload it. Or apparently, and I haven't tried this one, you can hit this clean cache, and that just deletes the cache and reloads everything. That probably fixes the problem. I've seen a couple of Reddit posts that said that it did, but I haven't had that issue. I haven't resolved it that way. I resolved it by deleting the sprite out of the folder here, just like right click, deleting, and then re-importing the sprite, and that worked. Thanks for watching this one, guys. Animations can be a bit challenging. If you're doing this in GameMaker code, there's a little bit more to it. Somehow this is actually one that's relatively easy in visual and a little bit more complicated in code. Thanks, guys. I will catch you on the next one.